Who they to all those who celebrate, who live the lifestyle, the whole nine. Welcome back to another episode of Gridiron Jungle with your two favorite Bengal fans. My name is Kyron. I'm with my brother Philly Phil. Phil, how you
Yes,
feeling today,
sir.
man?
I'm doing all right. Another Monday, another week in the books, and ready to talk some bar.
No doubt, man. No doubt. Just for everyone out there, as always, we appreciate your continued support as we're gearing up to wrap up this first season. I do want to, before we talk about kind of this episode today, I do want to mention Baldman54 left a YouTube comment.
Ron
I think,
Dog.
yeah, man. Ron Dog said Gerard Mayo should be our solid replacement for Luke. I know we'll go ahead and talk about Ron is a Ravens fan for all that counts. But we'll talk about the actual DC replacement that we got. I just wanted to make sure we highlighted him. This is probably going to be a shorter episode. Us just kind of really, now that we talked last week about Al Golden potentially being hired, that's been official.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about that briefly because Phil watched the press conference, and then we'll get into our recap of the championship weekend. We will not be discussing Super Bowl picks and our thoughts or predictions, should I say, this episode. Obviously, there's a bye week between AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. So we'll try to fill in something fun maybe towards the end of next week, or we'll figure something out. But we will have a separate episode for our actual predictions, maybe do some fun things such as prop bets, talk about things we really like, maybe some fans from other franchises. Maybe we can have them on for an episode or two to talk about the state of affairs of their teams. Phil and myself will put that together, but just FYI, this will not be a long episode as they have been. I guess they haven't been long, but it's going to be on the shorter side of what we have been releasing. With that being said, Phil, you told me now that we hired Al Golden, former defensive coordinator for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, was once a coach for our franchise under Lou. Now he is a DC. Mm-hmm. I didn't watch the press conference. You watched it today, and you mentioned feeling like a head coach, giving you head coach vibes, something of that nature. As someone who did not watch the press conference, talk to me about it. What did you take away? What should I be taking away? And should I be feeling excited about this hire?
Yeah, for sure. I'm personally excited. I think Bengals fans should be excited as well about the hire. I know a lot of times, you could go either way as far as a retread, as far as hiring someone that's been in the building before. You could say, same old stuff. How is this guy gonna, fix the issues that we had of the DC of old if he was a part of that staff? But truth be told, Al, as we talked about, was a part of that Super Bowl run. He was the linebackers coach for that crew. And I think he really got the best out of that crew. I mean, that was a young Logan Wilson, a young Jermaine Pratt, who had really solid seasons, performed really well in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, especially. I mean, certain play goes our way, and Logan Wilson looks like one of the players of the game, in that Super Bowl. So he really is going to have a clear vision for the defense. I think he's going to have familiarity with the players. Obviously, a lot of these guys that are on the team, he has had the opportunity to coach. So I think from that standpoint, you don't have to worry about him getting acclimated or worrying about guys adjusting to him. So I think that's definitely a positive. He has a very extensive background from, we talked about his time at Temple, his time at Miami. He knows what it's like to run an entire team. So being able to just empower him to run the defense the same way that, Lou kind of had that free reign. I'm excited about it. I think guys know what to expect. I think being that he was just up the road at Notre Dame and, he didn't go coach for another NFL team. He still, he talked about keeping an eye on the Bengals. He was still, supporting the team from afar, as a fan in the sense. So I think he knows the task that's ahead of him. I think he has a really good vision and a really good plan. He has experience with some of the guys that are going to be on the staff. So, really excited to see how it all gels. But, as I text you and we kind of talked offline, the most important thing is that they give him, the talent to work with to be able to develop. So I'm really looking forward to it. I thought he presented himself really well in the press conference, and yeah, I definitely think Bengal fans should be excited. I think he's gonna, like I said, have a clear vision. I think he's gonna hit the ground running, and I'm excited to see how things go and if he's able to fix these issues on the defense. So I definitely think Bengals fans should be excited. If you didn't watch it, I definitely think you could. I definitely think you should, just so you can get an idea of his mindset and see why you know other people around the league and guys on the team are excited about him taking over as the DC. So I'm looking forward to it. As much as I love Lou, and I'm not in any way upset about the hire. So I'm looking forward to it.
What was it in particular? Was it just demeanor overall?
I think the biggest his demeanor, one, obviously it wasn't like how you see it sometimes with first time coordinators or people coming from college to the NFL. There may be some nerves. I don't know if you saw Liam Cohen's introduction to Jacksonville, but it was awkward. Like he looks like he hasn't been there before.
That whole situation is awkward. That whole thing was awkward, so I get it.
My biggest takeaway from it, and the thing that I love to hear most from Al, is he talked about, hey, empowering the players. He said, I'm not going to always be able to make all the calls. Sometimes I'm going to have to lean on the guys on the field because they're the ones out there. They're seeing it. They're going to have to make the call. So having a coach, a defensive coordinator that's going to empower his players, I think is really important. You see how much that helps our offense, them being empowered, Joe having the free reign, so to speak, to make decisions. And I think we're going to see our defense empowered that same way. And hopefully we have a leader that emerges that is able to do that, whether that's Jermaine Pratt, whether that's Logan Wilson, or, somebody we're not thinking of right now. I'm really looking forward to see how that develops and who kind of takes on that leadership role on the defense.
Understood. It makes sense, man. Speaking of, you mentioned Golden having experience with other coaches. In that same conversation of coaches, the Bengals did announce the hiring of Jerry Montgomery as the defensive line coach, run game coordinator, as well as Mike Hodges as the linebacker coach. We won't speak too much on that. Obviously, just want to make sure we share that news with everyone out there. Montgomery, our D-line coach, he was in New England as a D-line coach last season. He has been in Green Bay, mostly working with defensive lines and run game coordinators. Also, he did play collegiately at Iowa and coached in the college ranks for a little while. Hodges has been with New Orleans. He spent the past 8 years with New Orleans. Linebacker coach for the past 5 years, from 2020 to 2024, and was a defense assistant with them. He also coached in college as well at Eastern Illinois and played linebacker at Texas A&M. So, two new coaches, 2 new hirings, a lot of subtle stuff. This is the time of year right now, if you're not paying attention explicitly, then there will be some things that happen that you just kind of miss. So just in case you do miss that, we are here for you. We wanted to point that out, like I mentioned. But like I said, let's kind of get into the bulk of what our conversation is going to be. Just going to recap what we saw this past weekend. No real predictions. We're going to save that. But, Phil, we had the championship weekend. NFC was first. We had the Commanders at Philadelphia, and then we ended the evening with another Buffalo at Kansas City playoff game. Both went maybe not as expected. I saw someone tweet, I forget, it's a player. I can't remember who it was. It might have been one of those cornerbacks from Baltimore who I'm not going to name. Speaking of, probably not the best day to wear red. I promise this is a Cincinnati shirt. This is a Cincinnati shirt, man. I promise I ain't turning my back on the squad. I just thought about that as we're filming, but I am still repping the home team.
For sure.
Cincinnati kid. Shout out to Barry Larkin. But I think both of us picked Washington to cover. Shout out to our good brother Corey, who we mentioned last week. Corey said it from the jump, man. He literally told me this. Corey and myself were we were live streaming, not streaming where everybody could watch it. We FaceTime each other and we're like just discussing the game. What was that? the weekend before. I forget which game it was. I can't even remember which one. Oh, Baltimore and Buffalo.
Buffalo, yeah.
Baltimore, Buffalo. And we were just talking about lines for that Philly game. And Corey said at the time, he said, I am taking Philly minus 21.
He did say that.
Yes, he said, I'll take them minus 21. They're going to blow the doors off of Washington. And I mentioned one of those cornerbacks from Baltimore saying something about Washington is simply too young to win this game. And that's kind of what proved. There's a certain point where your youth can, you know, you don't even know how big the moment is because you're so young. And there's also where you need that skill and you need that experience, should I say, to make it to the next level. 55-23 is not what I saw. It's not what you saw. It's not what anyone I think saw coming. Unless you were outside, unless you were in the city of Philadelphia or neighboring areas. Phil, 3 touchdowns for Saquon, 3 touchdowns for Jalen Hurts.
Man,
Jalen Hurts kind of silenced people who were worried about that knee. Dominant performance all the way around.
Absolutely.
Especially for playing the team the third time. You usually expect those games to be a little bit tighter, close. 55-23, as we mentioned. The big thing that I think to take away from that game would be the actual scoring. So 21-0 in the fourth quarter.
Man.
And that matters. We talk about it, and I'm sure we will when we get to the AFC, but that's a skill. Putting teams away is a skill. Winning close games is a skill. Outscoring a team 21-0 in the fourth quarter is a skill. What did you think about this NFC game? And what were your overall or your lasting impressions from watching it?
Yeah, I mean, lasting impressions, I think, goes without saying. Man, Saquon Barkley is just different. It's obviously this is a rematch. We talked about the logo conspiracy and that sort of thing, but even though I don't believe Saquon is the MVP, he truly is showing how valuable he is to this team. I mean, I text the group after that first Washington drive. I mean, that was a really good drive by both sides. It was just, you could just see the chess match there, the back and forth, the 2 3rd, 4th down conversions that Washington got on that first drive. Just like you could see, like, okay, this is going to be a tight game. It's going to go back and forth. At least that's how I felt in that opening drive. And then one play and boom, Saquon is off to the races, 60-yard touchdown, on the very first touch. And it's just like, wow. If I'm on the other side, it's like, man, we just worked really hard to get those 3 points and they turn around and run one play. And now
had two or 3 4th down conversions Washington had on that first drive, just keeping the drive alive. You just mentioned coming down for 3 points, and one play later, 60 yards later, touchdown. And what was most, I guess, telling about the touchdown is Saquon was just obviously hyped. He's never played in a game like this in his career, but also more so like, let's keep it going. Like, this is just a start. There's nothing to get too excited about. If you watch the interviews, the pregame stuff, and the sit downs that he had, you can tell this is something he's been visualizing. This is the reason he came to Philly, and it is starting to come to fruition. And you can tell that right now he's a man possessed. I said we'll talk about prop bets. I'll tell you right now, my prop bet for Super Bowl MVP is going to be Saquon. Maybe will depend. It depends on who I think is going to win that game, which we'll talk about more in the future. But if I do end up siding with the Eagles, then I definitely would pick Saquon for that because he's been playing incredibly, and they built that offense around him. Who knows what's going to come? They got 2 weeks. Things get weird in this bye week. Growing up, back in my day, and it's always telling because my birthday just passed on Sunday. I was watching these games on my birthday, and I remember being a kid. I forget what year they changed it, but the Super Bowl would always be around my birthday weekend. Then they added on the bye week. Now they added a whole extra week of football, and then so now it's pushed back to it's going to be the 9th. So the week before Valentine's Day. But coaches get tricky in between that time, might try to outthink themselves. It's a long chess match. Of course, you're going against Andy Reid. There might be some, Andy probably knows that I'm thinking this, so to throw him off, let me do this versus just doing your own game plan and stick to what works. Once again, not to get too far ahead of myself, but I agree with you. Saquon is just different. This Philly team, especially defensively, is playing differently than what they did at the beginning of the year. Mario, shout out to Mario, man. I'm sure we'll have to have an episode with Mario back before the Super Bowl just to kind of get his quick thoughts as a fan of the team and what he thinks. But I know he's going crazy. I know a lot of Philly fans are going crazy right now, and they really, truly believe that this is their year. It's a rematch of a Super Bowl a couple years ago. I'm getting lost with the numerals. I don't even know what Super Bowl we're at right now. This is 56. Are we 56 right now?
Is it? I thought it was 58. Is it 56?
Man, I have no idea. That just lets you know.
No, our Super Bowl was 56. So
so we're 59.
Yep.
Sheesh, time flies. Dang, Super Bowl 60 will be next year. Super Bowl champs. Super Bowl champs, Cincinnati Bengals. Super Bowl 60.
I like it. Got a nice ring to it.
Absolutely. But yeah, a rematch of 57 then?
57. Yep.
Yeah. And we saw how that went. That's when actually I think people could argue the Eagles team as a whole that season were better.
Yeah.
However, I think they're playing right now as good as they can play. I think the biggest I don't know if I've seen a run like the 2010 Packers. I remember watching them at the end of the season, the regular season, and saying, man, if they make it in, the way they're playing.
They got hot at the right time.
Who did Philly play last week?
Philly played the Rams.
Yeah, so I can't put them on that same level because Green Bay was rolling, and they were just kind of like one of those things. The same way Saquon's rolling in the same way that Green Bay team was rolling. Individually, he's rolling in that same way. He's unstoppable right now. I don't know if the Eagles are still playing that type of ball to where it's a foregone conclusion or they're better than that team that showed up at the Super Bowl a couple years ago. But, man, if they show up like they did on Sunday, it's going to be a tall task for the Chiefs to win another one.
Yeah.
I think they're built for it overall. But before you go into it, because the last thing I want to say about this game really is tip my hat to Jaden Daniels, tip my hat to the Commanders. Nobody expected this. I don't think anybody expected this type of season, this type of poise. I know we didn't, especially going into week 3, Ring of Honor game. I said it before, I'll say it again. Came on this podcast and I said, man, do not be surprised if Jaden Daniels does this to every team he faces this year. It seems like this kid just got it. And it looks like he's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he's going to have a long, successful career. He just has all the right stuff. He has the right mentality, and he is a force to be reckoned with. Glad he's in the NFC and not the AFC.
For sure.
And I think that team is going to be getting a lot of buzz with players, and they started having this conversation in the middle of the season where a lot of free agents want to go to Washington or are looking at Washington as a destination because of what they're doing and the culture they're building. So shout out to them. Very young team. I can see them getting back, but the NFC is packed. I do believe that Detroit would have got rolled over the same way. I don't think anybody was stopping Philly.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's not a healthy Detroit team either. I want to make sure
for sure. Yeah, I think that they ultimately set it apart. You know, obviously the Eagles are really tough on the trenches on both sides, but I think ultimately the defense just proved to be too much. The 4 turnovers that they caused to the 0, you know, I think those 4 turnovers that Philly caused led to 21 points for the Eagles. So, you know, big difference there. You know, we're talking about, 3 fumbles lost and, you know, a single interception that Jaden Daniels threw there. But, you know, outside of that, both teams had the ball about 30 minutes. You know, there was only a difference of 11 in plays. I think Washington ran 77 plays. Philly ran 66. So
yeah, the yards per play were the biggest. Probably the
yards per play, and then those turnovers were really the biggest thing. You know, so it just seemed like Washington kind of shot themselves in the foot at the most inopportune times and just really could never get a command on the game. So, it was just like you said, the story came to an end. It was an amazing season by the Commanders, and I think their fan base should be really excited, you know, moving forward. Because, like you said, when has there ever been buzz or talk about people wanting to go to Washington? So, I think that says a lot.
Yeah, man. See, they got Snyder up out of there, and then things have turned around. Shout out to Tay. We won't forget, Tay, that you wanted to tank for Archie Manning. I know we mentioned this before. Anytime we think of it, I'm going to remind you, you wanted to tank for Archie Manning. You did not. We were at the draft in Detroit. You wanted, you said, we'll take Jaden if he's there, I guess. You kind of treated him like a throw, I guess.
For sure.
A buy one, get one. If they're giving it away, I guess we'll take it. Now you got a franchise quarterback on your hands. You don't have to worry about taking for Arch no more, my brother.
Absolutely.
But yeah, those yards per play, as you mentioned, and also the penalties. Even though there was only a 17-yard difference, 9 penalties for 47 yards. But four turnovers, that's going to do it every time, especially when the other team gets touchdowns, not just points, but touchdowns off those turnovers on the road. It's impossible. It's impossible, man. So we'll see what happens next year. Join us on the couch here, Commander fans, and we are going to move it over to the AFC. We went to Arrowhead Field for the night game, AFC Championship game. The Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes' 5th AFC Championship title.
Man.
They won 32-29 over the Buffalo Bills. 28 first downs to 22 in favor of the Chiefs. Buffalo had 5 more plays, 68-63. The total yards were about even, 6-yard difference. 374 for Buffalo, 368 for Kansas City. Yards per play, just about even. 5.5 for Buffalo, 5.8 for Kansas City. Total drives, 9 for Buffalo, 10 for Kansas City. Passing yards were pretty much identical. 227 for the Bills, 233 for the Chiefs. Yep. Rushing yards were almost identical. 147 for the Bills, 135 for the Chiefs. 3 for 3 in the red zone for the Bills, 4 for 6 in the red zone for the Chiefs. 6 penalties for 48 yards for the Bills, 5 for 21 for the Chiefs. 1 turnover for the Chiefs. Both teams similar to the first game. When I say first game, I mean the first championship weekend game, not the first game between the Bills and Chiefs. Similar, 30 minutes and 32 seconds for the Bills, 29-28 for the Chiefs. Very even game, even when you get down to the turnovers. It was the classic, whoever has the ball last game. Feels like all these AFC championships have been this way, whether it's been the Bengals the 2 years we played them back-to-back, whether it's been the Bills who they've beaten a couple of times, maybe 2 or 3 times in the AFC championship at this point.
This was the second.
This is the second time they beat them. And there was another – who did they beat last year? Was it the Bills? Who did they beat last year? There's another team in there that I'm not thinking of that they have beaten.
Was it the Ravens? Did the Ravens make an AFC championship game?
No, that was divisional.
No? Okay. Huh.
Yeah, last year they lost in the divisional. And they played the Bills, if I'm not mistaken. No, because this was the second, right? I don't know, man. It doesn't matter. It's sickening. It's disgusting. Yep. Unfortunately, Bain did not make an appearance, so the game did go on. Stadium stayed intact, and we have the Chiefs going to the big game once again. 15-2, man. They've only lost twice this year, which is incredible because they're not really that good of a team.
Yep.
However, I believe this was the 17th game in a row where they won by 1 possession. Not in a row, but 17th game last season where they won by 1 possession or less. And like I said, it's breaks an NFL record. The record has already been broken by them for that. It's just an incredible stat. It's very small and very minute, but it makes the difference of the world when it gets down to these close games.
Yep.
It feels like you can't beat them. And at this point, like anything else, it's mental. It's got to be in teams' heads like, hey, man, we got to come out the gate fast and we got to keep our foot on the gas because if it gets tight, you can't count them out. You can't count Mahomes out. You can't count any Reed out. There are certain plays and certain tempos that they play with where you know they're just in a rhythm to score. You have to hope they turn the ball over. You have to hope they don't execute. And that's really about it, man. That's all you can do against this Chiefs team. I don't know how they keep doing it. I feel like Jesse Pinkman and Breaking Bad, like they can't keep getting away with this.
Right.
Like, they can't keep getting away with this. Like I don't understand it. Obviously, they're looking for the 3-peat. If you're into conspiracies, I'm sure the NFL really wants that 3-peat. I don't know, Phil. I know how much you dislike the Bills. I also know how much you dislike the Chiefs. So this was kind of like a situation.
Oh man,
The only thing good for me is that I did have Chiefs money line, which was I told Phil off of recording that was the worst money I've ever collected in my life. Um, just felt disgusting collecting winnings off of that win.
For
But
sure.
what are you thinking, man? What did you think about this game? Watching it, and I guess I said all of that and didn't say it actually was a really good game.
It
A
was an
very entertaining
amazing
game.
game.
Yes.
And I really I spent I even I didn't rewatch the game, but I watched I rewatched some highlights. And honestly, the thing that I really think was the difference in the game that ultimately, led to Kansas City winning is that Buffalo just refused to move away from trying to run the ball with Josh Allen. Like, I know he's typically successful at that. That's usually his bread and butter. But Kansas City had every single answer for any type of run they were trying with Josh Allen. He had 11 carries for 39 yards, only 3.5 yards a carry. And on the flip side, Patrick Mahomes also had 11 carries, but had 43 yards. If you would have told me that Mahomes and Allen would have had the same amount of carries and Mahomes would have outrushed him, I never would have believed you. And if you would have told me that James Cook was only going to have 2 more carries than Josh Allen, I wouldn't have believed you. And it's truly mind-blowing to me on Buffalo's last drive that James Cook didn't touch the ball one time. He didn't touch the ball one time. He was averaging over 6 yards a carry in that game and had 2 touchdowns. And it was like they forgot about him. It was like if I felt like I was watching the Bengals in that Super Bowl where they didn't put Mixon out on that last drive and they just went ahead and ran with P. Ryan. It's like, what are you doing? Like, I understand Josh Allen is your potential MVP for your team, but in that situation, I mean, I'm probably gonna hand that ball off to James Cook because they clearly wasn't as good stopping him as they were stopping Josh Allen. So I think that truly really served to be the difference in the game because you talked about how even this game was from every other aspect. And I think ultimately just those timely plays that Kansas City was able to make on 3rd and 4th downs, just having a little bit better, conversion percentage ultimately was what the difference in the game was.
You want to know? I love that breakdown you just gave. You want to know when I knew the Bills were going to lose this game?
When
I'm
is
I'm
that?
I'm I'm dead serious.
For sure.
Late in the game, 4th and goal. I believe it was goal. Buffalo had the ball, needed to score.
Mhm.
Going for it. Who was it in the back of the end zone? It was Curtis Samuel.
Yep.
Josh Allen finds Curtis Samuel back in the end zone, seemingly by himself.
By itself.
The camera's pan over to the sideline, and McDermott gives a yes. And then he puts the 1 up to let them know they're going for 1. But he gave out that audible yes. And that's the moment when I realized, oh, this team's not going to win.
Yeah.
Because, call me silly. Hopefully someone out there can understand what I'm about to say. I like an emotional coach. I like an
Yeah.
enthusiastic coach, but I don't like a surprise coach.
Right.
And there's a little bit of that wasn't enthusiasm. Like, yeah, we did it. It was more so like, ooh, relief. Like we
There
actually
you
got that
go.
done.
There you go.
And as soon as I saw that, if he just put the 1 up, like he expected that to happen, I would have never had that thought.
That's
But him having
fair.
that moment, slow motion, the camera caught it. I'm
Yeah.
like, I literally was sitting here on the couch and I said, oh, they about to lose. They're
Yep.
not going to win this game.
Yep.
That's what it came down to. Another week, another tight end with a drop. Not the easiest catch to make for Kincaid.
Yeah.
Towards the end of that game, but it'll put them right in field goal range to at least tie it and send us to
Right.
overtime.
Right.
Listen, on the road in KC, I think their biggest superpower right now is that they've done this over and over again.
There you go.
It's reaching that Brady territory where you're just like, man, until the clock says 3 zeros,
It is not over.
it is not over. Like it is not over. And we've seen some nonsense. I will never forget. Once again, I'm not going to try to remember the number, but I'll never forget the Super Bowl with the Patriots against the Seahawks. I'll never forget, like in the cartoons when your mouth is just open and somebody got to like close your mouth.
Yep.
That's how I looked after that interception. I just couldn't believe it. And there's just certain things where you're just like, all right, just know how to win.
Yep.
Just know how to get this done.
Yep.
I thought the game was amazing, as you mentioned. would have loved to see Burrow in that spot.
Man.
Would have loved to see Burrow. Obviously, I'm not going to harp on that. We're not there. Okay, we get it. We'll wait for next year. But it's inevitable, man. Like Thanos, it's inevitable. Like it's just only two quarterbacks have beaten Mahomes in the playoffs. One of them is broadcasting.
Yeah.
The other one was chilling at home with us.
Yeah. Or he was in Australia watching the Open.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's hard to really put it, and maybe this is something we won't get until after years and years down the line. I don't know if we really realize what we are seeing, and I hate to give compliments to the Chiefs, but man, it's kind of incredible, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop at some point.
Yeah,
this can't go on forever. But they seem like they're primed to keep this thing rolling until either Reed leaves or Mahomes leaves or whatever the case may be. But either way, that could have gone to the Bills just as easily as it went to the Chiefs. Chiefs have the skill set of knowing how to win these close games, as I mentioned numerous times before. Kind of happy for the Super Bowl matchup, though. I would have much rather seen the Chiefs Eagles versus the Bills Eagles.
Yep.
And maybe that's just me and my lack of enthusiasm for Buffalo. I'm not enthused. They just don't do it for me.
Yeah. And you know, I hate to pour salt in a wound, but I'm so tired of the Josh Allen talk. Like I'm so tired of it. If you're not talking about Mahomes, then it should be Burrow. You know, I love Lamar, MV3, but these guys just time and time again, just neither one of them have been to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So like, it's time to put proper respect on Joe's name and not give so much respect to Josh Allen. I mean, he played a really good game, but I saw him get stuffed time after time on the goal line when that's supposed to be their bread and butter. And you know who wouldn't have got stopped on the goal line? Jalen Hurts. You know, so I mean, I don't think Josh Allen is even the best quarterback at his style of quarterbacking. But you know, we'll say that for another day. So sorry, I just had to go on that rant.
Nah, man, you're good. Before we get out of here, Chiefs opened up as a 1.5-point favorite against the Eagles on February 9th, Super Bowl. Going to be played in New Orleans. There's a lot more that is going to be coming your way before we get there. As I mentioned, you'll be listening to this, or this is releasing on Tuesday, the 28th of January. As far as our schedule, Phil and myself will go ahead and talk that out. NFL honors this year, so the awards are going to be aired on Thursday, February 6th. So Phil and myself might plan, once again, pending schedule, we might plan on recording that Friday just to kind of discuss that and then recording our Super Bowl predictions. Make sure you have it for the weekend, right before the big game. And then maybe we'll have another episode for you before that. Like I said, prop bets, maybe some other fan stuff coming on. We know some Cowboy fans. Maybe we could talk about the state of affairs going down there in Dallas. Not because we care, but because it's comical at this point. And I love to just have somebody talk about that from the inside. It's funny talking. Shout out to my brother Donovan.
Yes,
I know he's listening.
Up,
it's funny just where Donovan is mentally. He's just kind of over it. It's not real life to him right now. It's just kind of
my boy Will, born and raised in Dallas, Texas, man, still lives there. And he said, I don't even want to talk about the Cowboys until September. So yeah,
I get it.
It says a lot.
I've been there with the Bengals, so I get it. I understand that. And then, like I said, maybe Mario, who was our only guest on here so far, when we had the Eagles game, as an Eagles fan, just kind of get his thoughts about what's going to happen going into that.
And no, we won't have any Chiefs fans on. Sorry,
not at all. No Chiefs fans. We will not have that. Actually, I do know a Chiefs fan. It's funny because I was talking to her on Sunday before the game, and she I like real people and real like objective people, and she was saying like, it's kind of she said I kind of feel funny about everything that's going on, like with the whole ref thing and this little extra help. She said, but I will say this. I thought I was talking to Phil for a second. She said, I will say this. we need them to do everything in their power to make sure Josh Allen doesn't beat us. Like, if we lose to Josh
For
Allen, I'm
real.
gonna be highly upset. Like, it was
For
one of those.
real.
She said the exact same thing you said, Phil. Like, I'm so tired of the Josh Allen talk.
Yeah.
Like, if we lose to him, I'm gonna be upset. So
yeah, as much as I hate the Chiefs, like I'm not gonna be able to. I wouldn't be able to stomach losing to Baltimore in the AFC Championship game. I wouldn't be able to stomach losing to Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. If it's somebody I'm gonna lose to, it's Pat. You know what I mean? The controversy, ref talk or not, you know, Brady dealt with the same thing. But if it's somebody I'm gonna lose to, you know, that's the guy that I'm okay with it being, you know, it happening against.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you 100%. You just mentioned Brady. We are, I think, it was January 19th. So not exactly almost the anniversary, but just not a year and 8 days past the anniversary. Not a year. How many years? What year was that? 2002?
The Tuck Rule.
23 years and 8 days past the Tuck Rule.
Yeah.
That anniversary was on January 19th. And yeah.
Oh, two.
I don't know, man. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this works. Phil, I think that's about it for right now. I think we can go ahead and wrap this up.
Yes, sir.
Our recap is done. Like I said, be on the lookout. Please stay subscribed so you can get more episodes as we get into the Super Bowl week. Obviously, we will have a Super Bowl recap after the game, probably on that 10th. And then maybe we'll have a discussion on what you should expect during the offseason as far as our schedule and everything else. But until then, Phil, it's always a pleasure, my brother.
Yes, sir. You know it.
And for all of you out there listening, we thank you for tuning in, for supporting. We will catch you soon. Until then, Hoo Day.
Hoo Day.